Looking for a professional office space that makes it easy to focus on growing your business? At J. Kenba Executive Suites, we offer turnkey office solutions with stylish furnishings already in place so you can walk in and get right to work. Our leases include access to Wi-Fi, managed building access for security, on-site parking, utilities, and regular cleaning services, giving you peace of mind and a workspace that's always clean, secure, and business-ready. Whether you're a mental health professional, insurance agent, notary, or other service-based entrepreneur, we provide the professional environment and amenities you need to impress clients and operate efficiently. And if you're not looking for full-time office space but need a place to host a workshop or small meeting, we also offer conference room rentals, perfect for off-site meetings, trainings, and workshops. Schedule your private tour today and see the difference for yourself. Visit jkenba.com. That's www.jkenba.com to learn more and reserve your space before it's gone. At J. Kenba Executive Suites, we provide the professional space. You create the success.
Welcome to the By Jill Radio Show. I'm your host, Dr. Byron Jasper, and we are recording live from J. Kenba Executive Suites in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with special production by Becknell Media. And we are in the saddle. They thought we were gone, but we had to hit them with a surprise here at By Jill Radio Show. And if that means we is being uttered, that must mean that we're sitting next to the co-host with the most. I always kind of try to bring him in with some high praises because he is one of those people that just deserves flowers for just being a solid guy and also being patient zero among patient zeros. And for patient zero, that must mean it is the one and only George Becknell. How you doing today, brother?
Doc, I'm fantastic, brother. Appreciate you doing this last one for season 3. I guess. Well, maybe we'll talk about it. Yeah. It might be like a bonus episode. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it might be the bridge between 3 to 4. I think a lot of people are going to be pleasantly surprised that we're hopefully going to put this out on a holiday of all days. Shout out to Juneteenth, because at this point, I'd like to just go ahead and say, you know what, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And more importantly, the topic today is possibly about freedom. I mean, I think that's pretty synonymous with what our state's trying to do when it comes to this, but it also gave me a sense of, okay, well, we might be moving in the right direction over here. So based on that, I just think it's worth giving the people what they want. The people said they wanted more, so we're going to do that, man. And I'm sure you can agree that if there's demand out there, we're going to supply it.
No, absolutely. It's just basic economics. It's what the country's founded on, man. So, there's demand is there. Well, let's meet it with some supply and call it a day.
There we go. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that some people are very well versed in, especially if you work potentially in outpatient medicine and or the field of pharmacy.
Sure.
If you don't work in those two fields, I'm pretty sure you do not know what this is, even though you may have dealt with it on a daily, if not weekly, maybe even a monthly basis. And that topic is something called pharmacy benefit managers, or pharmacy benefits managers, or PBMs is what we call it. Patient Zero, before we jump into our first segment, and a segment that, we always try to drill down on the reasoning why this topic comes up. What do you potentially know about PBMs, other than what I've obviously went off the handle about several times, more than most people? Anything specific for you that PBMs or the name PBM stands out that you say, oh yeah, I think about this, or think about this group or this title? If nothing at all, no worries, but I just want to see if there's anything that comes to mind.
I have no idea about PBMs. I'm very familiar with PBS and PBJ. So, yeah. Public broadcast system, peanut butter and jelly, I'm familiar with, but I have no idea what a pharmacy benefit manager does.
Great.
But it doesn't sound pleasant.
Well, let me ask a hard-hitting media question. Am I wrong to assume PBJ is your favorite PB of all times?
You are wrong.
Okay.
Because I hate jelly with peanut butter.
Okay.
I don't know why the rest of the world is in such a frenzy about it. Just give me the peanut butter without the jelly, and I'm call it a day.
Okay, so you're anti-jelly or anti-peanut butter and jelly? I just want to know if I'm making sure I understand. Because I wouldn't be a good journalist if I didn't ask this question.
That's a great question, brother. I don't like jelly at all.
Oh.
I don't want jelly on biscuits. I don't want jelly on toast.
Donuts?
I don't want jelly on donuts. Okay. No, I want original glaze.
Got you.
When it's gluten-free. Yeah.
Got you. I understand. I appreciate the idea and your honesty, but I'm just going to disagree with you. I think
that's fine.
Jelly makes the world go round. That's just what I'm saying.
So, I'm used to standing on this hill by myself. Like there's a lot of hills that I'll stand on by myself.
You're going to plant this flag.
Yeah, I'll plant this GP flag on the hill of I hate jelly. And I'm fine with that.
There you go. Well, going back to the topic at hand, PBMs, our pharmacy benefit managers, are pretty unique in the idea as to why they came about. Mm-hmm. But of course, like any good idea, if you don't have guardrails in place, things can potentially go off the handle.
Correct.
So PBMs, for those who are listening, especially you dedicated listeners that we rock with, we appreciate you for sticking with us this long. If you are a new listener, welcome. Like, subscribe, share, follow, all that good stuff. But PBMs are third-party administrators that manage prescription drug benefits on behalf of insurers, employers, and public programs like Medicare, maybe even Medicaid. Their roles include negotiating drug prices, creating formularies, processing claims, and managing networks of pharmacies. Okay, I'll say that again. Creating formularies, all the medicines that are going to, quote unquote, be covered or not covered for a particular insurer or for a municipality, a government entity. The PBM comes in and says, these are all the meds that you're going to cover. These are the blood pressure meds we're going to cover, diabetes meds, inhalers, all that good stuff. So they make formularies. They process the claims, make sure that things are paid when someone goes to the pharmacy to get their med. They help process the claim. They also obviously help with negotiating drug prices. So manufacturer A wants to charge this much to a pharmacy to stock the medicine and potentially dispense it. PBMs come in and say, no, instead of this number, we're going to give it this number. And if you can give us this number, we'll put it on the formulary. So negotiate prices, create formularies, process claims, and of course, they manage networks of pharmacies, which will come into play in a second.
Sure. So
based off of that, I would like to say that I'm already slightly confused. And I work on this all the time because that's a lot of stuff to do considering you're supposed to be a third party. And I would assume your scope would be a lot more narrow. But hey, sounds like they kind of do whatever they want. But that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Okay.
And it brings a question to mind.
Okay.
I'm curious to know what background do you need to be a PBM? Because, it sounds more like more business people calling medical shots. And that's the first thing, when you read that definition, that's the first thing I thought of.
I don't think anyone would disagree. I unless they have a stock or stake in PBMs, I don't think anyone would come in and say, you have a reason to say they're not business related. Because all of the things we just talked about all sound business related, right? Mm-hmm. Negotiating prices, creating formularies, processing claims, and managing networks. None of it sounds clinical. So it definitely sounds business and business specific. Sure. So I think that's fine. Let's talk about exactly where they are in terms of the universe of healthcare. So as of 2023, PBMs manage benefits for approximately 275 million Americans, my friend. 275 million Americans, covering around $600 billion in prescription drug spending. So obviously, as I think most people would say, it's not a lot of money at all. Clearly, it's only $600 billion.
It's a couple bucks.
I mean, it ain't like it's $1 trillion or anything, right? I mean, so at this point,
gas money,
just, a couple drops in the bucket. So $600 billion of prescription drug spending go through PBMs. And that's 2023. So we're in 25. Obviously, it could be more than that, but let's just say $600 billion. Now, this is my favorite, and I'm going to use, again, favorite with the utmost sarcasm. Part because I hear these names all the time, and they are often the bane of my existence being in the primary care world. But there are three names that I'm sure when you hear them, you will say, oh, that's what these people are. All right. By chance, I'm sure you know one of them. I'm going to give you a guess opportunity. One PBM, there's three big ones. Okay. Give me one. And I'll just see. Think about when you fill prescriptions at a pharmacy. What name might you hear? Not necessarily the insurance, not the pharmacy, but a name that potentially is on your insurance card, or you have to call.
I got one, and they irritate me.
Absolutely. Okay, so go ahead. You got 3 shots, but go ahead. Let me see if you get one of the 3.
CVS Caremark.
Caremark. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's the one. So, and when you want me to tell a story, I will tell a story.
I know we will. We'll get you there. So we got CVS Caremark. I'm going to give you a second one, and let me see if you can come up with the third one. So the second one that I hear all the time is Optum RX. OPTUM, Optum RX. So that's the second PBM, which again, you take your insurance card, you either look at it on the front or you flip it around, and that name is somewhere on the card.
Sure.
They're not necessarily insurance, but they're in between you, the patient, the insurance carrier, provider, whatever you call it. Or if it's an employer plan, it's between the employer who provides the insurance and the pharmacy, or the employer provided insurance plan and the pharmacy. PBM is in the middle. So that's 2. What is the third one? And I'm sure you all know what this is. It starts with an EX.
Express Scripts.
Express Scripts is the third one. So that's the 3 big PBMs out there. Now, best question I'm sure you'll come up with. What percentage of PBM related business do you think these 3 control? And again, we got 100%, we got 0%. What percentage would you say? It's 3. Big 3. How many percents would you say?
I'd say it's 75 to 80%.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I said that wrong. You are 100% correct.
Gotcha.
75 to 80% is correct. 80% to be exact of all U.S. prescriptions flow through CVS Caremark.
That's wild.
Optum RX and Express Scripts.
That's wild work.
I want you to let that sit in. So these third-party people that are business and business only, that have really no potential clinical expertise, are now creating your formulary, negotiating your drug price, helping you process the claims, and then, of course, managing the network of pharmacies that you can go to fill your prescriptions.
Yeah. So I'm caught somewhere between hating the way CVS operates and admiring their business savvy.
You gonna give credit where it's due, but you ain't gonna do it with a smile, right?
Yeah, it's brilliant, dirty,
right?
but brilliant.
It's like rooting for the villain to do some things and get away with it. Almost like reminds me of the movie Dead Presidents. You ever saw that? When Dead Presidents, clearly they were trying to obviously do like a heist. And you were kind of rooting for them because they went to Vietnam and had some crazy stuff happen to them. And they were like basically coming back as veterans, and the system was horrible to them. So you're now rooting for them as villains. Like that's kind of what that kind of sounds like.
Yeah. It's like appreciating Heath Ledger in the Dark Knight.
Absolutely.
Because he was brilliant. Now he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
You don't want him to win.
Yeah.
But you gotta admire how brilliant he was.
You kind of like he could get away with a little bit,
and that's what I think about CVS.
Absolutely,
because there was one time you called in the script for me, and I used to go to Walgreens. So back in the day, before Rite Aid was purchased by Walgreens, the cool people on Corporate and Jefferson used to use my phone number and run up all my points. So I had like a gajillion Walgreens points. So I always went to Walgreens.
There you go.
So something you prescribed, I don't remember what it was, but it was like a controlled substance. And and my insurance or my prescription insurance, or I guess now that I'm doing this podcast or this radio show, is a PBM.
The PBM
told me it was a controlled substance. I would not be able to get it from a Walgreens. But my options were to either get it in the mail. I don't know how the mail is safer than a pharmacy, or I can get it through CVS, which in my opinion looks the exact same on the inside as the Walgreens.
Well, the coolers are on the right, not the left, clearly.
Right. Something's different.
Clearly.
The ventilation in the store is different.
Right, absolutely.
But, you got to admire their business gangster. Like,
Yes, I agree. So the idea of PBMs controlling most of what we're talking about is not surprising. It's probably more ironic to the point of, I knew the name. I see them on my insurance card, but I never really knew what they did. So now you kind of have a sense, but it gets better. Okay, so let's give a little bit of statistics and background. So now that you know what a PBM is and you know who they are, let's talk about some of the background. So in the 1960s and 70s, PBMs emerged in that decade or so, right? 1960s and 1970s. Their influence escalated dramatically with the introduction of Medicare Part D in 2006. So they've been around since the 60s and 70s, but in 2006, things started to obviously become different. Let's just put it like that. They went from simple processing to basically powerful drug negotiators, okay? They're supposed to basically come in and lower drug cost by negotiating rebates and standardizing formularies. That's what they were supposed to do. We want a person to stop people at independent pharmacy, mega chain pharmacy levels from basically gouging the patients. So we put a third person in the actual equation to help negotiate the price so it doesn't go crazy, and also to make sure the formularies had the right stuff on it. So really well intended, so they thought. They also said, look, we're going to give discounts to manufacturers by saying if we have enough volume, we'll give you a discount. They're going to do that to where they process claims efficiently, so you're not sitting there waiting for the insurance to pay a claim that they don't necessarily want to pay, and you're waiting on the medicine. So the PBM is kind of like, we're going to pay this real quickly so you can get your medicine and there's no holdup. Let's verify your benefits and all that good stuff. So that's what they were supposed to do. Now, George, I'm going to ask another hard-hitting question. Do you happen to think PBMs do all of those things in the exact way they're supposed to with no problems whatsoever?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
It sounds like a fairy tale.
Okay.
And also, if you really think about it, I can't think of a scenario where you have business people making decisions and you add another group of people to help with that decision, and somehow the price goes down, even though that third group has to get paid too.
Absolutely.
That's bad math.
Thank you.
That doesn't happen.
Thank you. And I think you're segueing once again into the next part that we're going to talk about, because if they were supposed to secure discounts and rebates, basically drive costs towards lower costing medications, making your formulary more cost effective, right? We're not going to put all the fancy expensive meds on there. We're going to try to balance it. And then we're going to make sure we process these claims quickly so patient zero can get his medicine and not have to be at the pharmacy for 3, 4, 5 hours. That's the idea. Well, what are they potentially doing? They actually do 3 or 4 things that we're going to talk about. Okay. So the first thing is called spread pricing. Okay. Patient zero, I gave you a write-up on what spread pricing is. I want you to read, at least for the listeners out there, what it is and basically how it potentially works. And we're going to give some examples, but I want you to give them a setup on what spread pricing is.
So, spread pricing. PBMs charge health plans significantly more than they reimburse pharmacies, pocketing the difference. So, an example, you charge your plan $60, but you're paying the pharmacy $50 and you're keeping a $10 spread.
Okay. So let's make very specific examples about this. Patient zero walks into a pharmacy. Okay. Patient zero pays how much in this example? You just said there's a $60, $10 thing. Patient zero pays how much?
I pay more than 60.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I pay whatever minus $60.
Okay.
So it might be $80 minus 60. So it might be $20.
Right.
I guess.
And how much goes to the pharmacy potentially?
$50.
$50. So what happens with the extra money?
They keep it.
They keep it, right?
The PBMs keep it.
And again, their goal is to supposedly lower the cost. So why would they do that?
Everybody needs to make a profit.
But my point is, there is no reason to if you have this set up the way it is. You just made perfect sense. The drug may cost whatever, but if the price is $80 and the pharmacy only gets $50, well, the $30 got to go somewhere, and they don't have an incentive to give it to you at this moment. So what do you think they're going to do? They're not going to give it to the pharmacy.
No.
They could give it back to the potential employer. They could give it to the insurance provider. They could give it to you. But what do they tend to do?
To keep it.
They keep it, right? So that's the first thing.
Unless you CVS Caremark and you keep it all.
Well, we'll get there too. But that's the first thing. So they're going to spread the price to allow more to flow back to them. It's a no-brainer. Why would you say there's money left on the table? Let me give it back to the people. Even though that's technically what my job is, why would I do that when I can literally get a profit, right?
Correct.
So that's one thing. And then on top of that, this type of practice has led to states like, state Medicaid programs, or investigations within state Medicaid programs, I should say, like Ohio, They had to literally look into this practice, and they recouped $88 million of $225 million in alleged overcharges by PBMs when this happened. Meaning we were basically overcharged as a state in this example, if we're the state of Ohio. And by us being overcharged, we said, look, this doesn't really make sense. Let's just go back and look at this. And they found $88 million of overcharges. Like, that should give you an idea how rampant this can be if there is no one really and truthfully monitoring, because you're assuming people are going to be on the honor system. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. So that's one huge example, probably the biggest. So spread pricing is probably one of, if not the worst thing that PBMs tend to do.
So can we talk about these numbers right quick?
Let's.
So Ohio recouped $88 million of a $225 million alleged overcharge from PBMs, right? So they got $88 million back, right? So that means, what is it, 125, 130, I don't know, $137 million, $137 million
Yeah.
that was overcharged that you got away with.
Yeah.
And that's in one state.
One state. And that's a state program.
Yeah.
That's not counting.
That's not everything else.
That's not counting Medicare. That's not counting government municipalities, right? You're not talking about the local government, the city, the state, the parish, the county. They're not also talking about employers. So that's one state in one example. So that's one. And again, that's spread pricing. So we'll move to the next one.
So I guess what I'm saying is, if you really think about this, they covered $60 billion total. Like we said earlier, how much of that is actually legit?
Yeah. Well, if it was 60, I would actually be proud. It's 600.
600, excuse me.
So you over here spread pricing. I see what you
Yeah,
did
spread
there.
pricing.
I see what you did there. I see.
I just wanted to make sure you was on your toes.
There you go. Well, we're going to move to the second thing that they tend to do nowadays. Again, we know what they're supposed to do. Spread pricing is one problem. The second pricing is rebate-driven formularies. So we already kind of gave an example of this. PBMs often favor higher-priced brand name drugs because rebates, calculated as a percentage of the list price, right, are greater, and they prioritize profit over patient affordability. Now, some people will probably argue this one, that this doesn't happen a lot, because usually when we want to get the name brand fancy meds, they usually don't want to cover that. But it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on the formulary. It depends on the employer. It depends on the insurance plan. And it also depends on potentially the disease process, right? If it's a certain disease process, it may be, well, we're going to do a lot more generics in this one. But if it is indeed something that's more something like a cancer-related process, they may say, look, we're going to go after the really expensive med. We're not going to do the generics because the expensive ones are the ones we want. And that's why I say it really depends on not only all these other variables, but it can come down to formulary versus industry versus field of medicine. So that's why the rebate-driven formulary stuff is not as rampant, but I think it's something that happens. And again, it depends on where you sit in this universe of healthcare that you'll see that happen. Okay. And I got one more for you. So it's called copay clawbacks. Copay clawbacks. So as of 2018, there's something called the Schaefer Center, which they did a study, and it revealed that 23% of patient copays exceeded the PBM cost, meaning PBMs kept the overage. Okay. So in copay clawbacks, that's something that people may not quite understand. Okay. So I did a little extra research. So Patient Zero, give me a little latitude if you don't mind. So again, let me make it make sense. A copay clawback happens when a patient pays more in a copay at the pharmacy than what the drug actually costs the PBM. The PBM keeps the difference in profit, right? So similar to spread pricing, but pretty much it's more copay focused, right? So there's a difference between the drug itself having a cost and you having a copay. So I think most people can wrap their head around that, right? A copay is, of course, this is how much it costs to get access to the medicine. It's not the cost of the medicine itself. So spread pricing is on the medicine itself. The medicine costs the pharmacy $50. We're going to charge Patient Zero $80. We keep $30 difference because that is a spread on the medicine. The copay clawback is the copay only, has nothing to do with technically the medicine. Okay, so this is an example. Your copay for your drug that you just said cost $80. There's a $20 copay on the front end.
Right.
The PBM negotiated the price that they pay the pharmacy for that same drug is $10. You paid $10 more than necessary. The PBM gets the $10 difference on the copay, plus possibly the spread on the actual medicine. So you could pay over $40, $50. one on copay, one on the spread, and they get both. And people wouldn't know the difference because to them, they just paid, right? They're not thinking about it as, well, my copay was 10, this one was 50. Like, they don't think about it like that. You just get one price and you pay one price. You're not really looking at the receipt to say, well, how much was the copay? How much was the medicine?
But they don't put that on the receipt.
Well, some people could do that, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, some people, not necessarily the patient.
But the pharmacy
and
won't do
or
that.
the insurance could mandate that happens. But again, most of the time, you just pay a price.
They won't do that. And
Yeah.
you know what? That makes sense because I didn't realize that was a thing till I started coming to the clinic. Because when did you start dispensing drugs?
We started dispensing pretty much right out the gate. So we started in 2020. So I'd say late 2020, early 2021.
Right. So that was the first time that I've received a drug that was cheaper without using my insurance.
Yeah.
And what you're saying actually makes sense to me because, I've been trusting my insurance and the pharmacies for, 37 years. And then I come to you, you're like, well, let's run through the clinic, see how much it costs. And it's cheaper. And I'm like, how's that possible? This theory makes sense.
Absolutely. So like I said, that whole copay clawback idea is something that happens along with the rebate, incentivizing the rebate to be the formulary to have more rebates that are going to be towards higher priced drugs, plus the spread pricing. So that's what happens on a regular basis. And that's where a lot of their profits come because, as we just talked about, they don't have an incentive not to do that. How do they get paid? Well, they're not getting paid potentially to lower pricing. And if they lower it enough, you get this check and everybody's happy. That would probably be a better way, right? Hey, we're not going to pay you based on rebates or how much you can get a spread. And then with that spread, you get to pocket the difference. We're going to pay you based on how much you save us. And we can definitely kind of almost give you a bonus, right? We are going to give you a flat rate to do this work. If you keep us under this rate and everybody's happy, you get a bonus, right? When you do good work, you get a bonus. No. At this point, they pretty much can put their hand in everything. They can make the formulary, they can process the claim, they can negotiate the pricing of the drugs, and then, of course, they can figure out which pharmacies they're going to work with. And if a pharmacy doesn't want to match the price that they deem to be necessary, hey, Patient Zero, we're going to charge 80. We need you to basically take 50. If you don't take 50, we're going to go to this other pharmacy because they're going to take 50. Because if you want 75, we don't want a $5 spread. We want a $40 or a $30 spread. So you, pharmacy A, need to take $50 because we're going to charge 80. We know that it only costs 50, but we don't want to, we know that it doesn't cost that much, but we want you to take $50, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
No, it makes sense. That way they can do what they want and they can tell patients like myself that you can't go to Walgreens, but you got to go to CVS.
You got to go to CVS, right? And that comes as an extension of, again, before we even talk about who owns the PBM, which is another wrinkle, the three people who are doing this, Optum, CVS Caremark, newsflash, who possibly owns that one.
Right.
And then Express Scripts. Those people who own those are going to have an incentive to do what they want to do because there isn't really a lot of there aren't a lot of rules in place, right? And if there aren't, and there's no incentive to not do that, then why not get myself not only the paycheck you're going to give me for doing the work that I said I'm going to do, but I can double dip or triple dip into this to basically pocket the difference of savings, right? As much as it could be helpful for you, the employer, you, the county, you, the city, to say, if you save us $100 million, we want 88, 89, 90, 95 million, or hell, we want all of it. Then we'll pay you after that. They just basically say, when there's a rebate, y'all can do what you want. What you think they say? They don't say, hey, yeah, we're going to give you your money back. We're going to pocket the difference.
Right.
Okay. So that's the idea of how PBMs work. And people start to wonder, well, why do these medicines cost so much more? Well, drug manufacturers have a hand in some of that. But this is another layer to it, right? Because the PBMs want to get paid too. So they're not going to do the due diligence of lowering it really as much as they probably could. They're going to do what they can to quote unquote lower it, but lower it in a way where they can get a difference, get a rebate, or get a copay clawback. So the last few things we'll talk about in closeout segment 1. So from a PBM standpoint, PBMs claim to reduce drug costs by 17 to 47%. And from 2007 to 2018, list prices rose 159%. While the net prices only rose 60%. So again,
that's wild.
They're raising the price on the list price 159%, let's just say 160, but the net price is only raising 60. So that's 100% difference, obviously, simple math. And that's ideally what you would say is wrong. Let's just say it like that, right? So at that point, that's the idea that we don't happen to sit here and think about of, well, why are drugs costing so much more? Why is it so difficult to get my medicine? Why do I have to call Express Scripts to see if it's covered or if it's not covered? And why am I on the phone with Caremark trying to figure out it has to be mailed, or can I pick it up over here? But no, I got to go to this. Why? This is why. The third-party PBM is in the middle of you and your medicine, you and the pharmacy getting you your medicine. They're often calling the shots, and they're the ones that literally have people answering the phone and they have no idea what they're talking about. They'll tell you one thing, you hang up and call me, and I tell you that that's not accurate. I know the person who quote-unquote worked there told you that, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Correct.
And then we end up having to jump through a lot of hoops and paperwork just to basically be told that your medicine's not covered. And this is why. And when it is covered, it oftentimes is more beneficial to them than it is to you. So last few examples, and I think this will drive the point home. So Patient Zero will do two specific things, okay? Insulin pricing, okay? So the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, had a lawsuit that showed PBMs manipulated rebates to favor high-priced insulin, contributing to enormous price hikes. One vial of insulin called Humalog went from $21 in 1999 to $274 in 2017.
That's disgusting.
Okay, $21 to $274.
That's disgusting. That's ridiculous.
And again, this is manipulation of price from a rebate standpoint, right? So this is not the spread pricing that we talked about. This is not the copay clawback, but that's one example. Another example, the FTC found that PBMs and their affiliated specialty pharmacies added roughly $8.7 billion of extra revenue over 6 years by inflating prices on 51 high-cost drugs that are related to what? Cancer and chemotherapy. $8.7 billion. Basically, over 6 years, they literally said, hey, I'm a PBM. I'm going to work with this specialty pharmacy because I now control the network of pharmacies that we're going to go to. And we're going to raise the price on these cancer drugs to make sure that we have a profit. And the profit was in the arena of $8.7 billion. So almost $9 billion on just cancer drugs alone. That's not going into things like HIV, asthma, insulin, drugs that may seem very mundane, but they are hard to make sometimes, are hard to produce. They're not as simple as pills. So at that point, you are actually having to do what? Jump through a little bit more hoops with manufacturing, and they're basically cutting into those people getting those meds at a reasonable cost. And that's crazy. And we haven't even gotten to my favorite part, again, sarcastic and facetious, which is the physician side. The physicians, like myself, on the outpatient side of things, are constantly dealing with PBMs and something that we hate and hate with a passion called prior authorizations. Patient Zero, I'm sure you've heard this word before. Any idea how many prior authorizations most doctors have to do on a regular basis?
I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure at least 2 out of 5 patients that you see requires prior authorization.
Absolutely. So I would say it's somewhere between, if we're talking about an average day, not DPC, regular primary care, if they're seeing 50 people in a day, we're talking about somewhere between 75 to 80% of people have
75 to 80%.
And the only reason you will not have as many prior authorizations is if you literally know the formulary like the back of your hand and you stick with all generic medications. But if you start to go off the formulary and you start to obviously try to prescribe stuff that may be, I don't know, more beneficial, newer, better, maybe, more helpful, then, we can't do that without you telling us why we should cover this medicine for this person. Because, of course, the people who are making you do a prior authorization are very medically trained, right? They're not. As we just spoke, it has nothing to do with clinical. It has to do with driving up rebates and having the ability to pocket said rebates, driving up prices to take the spread, and then, of course, having that copay clawback. So us, on the physician side, we deal with this headache from a different angle compared to patients who deal with it from the headache of I can't get my medicine. So in 2018, the American Medical Association had a survey that stated 91% of doctors believed PBM imposed prior authorizations delayed treatment. 75% of those people say it sometimes leads to patients abandoning therapy, and 28% reported a serious adverse event because of delays. So that kind of shows you that in 2018, before this got to where it is now, right? We're in 2025, as I mentioned. That's 7 years ago. They knew it was bad then. So do you think 7 years has now, passed, it's gotten better?
No.
So if it has not getting better, that means it's getting worse. And at this point, I don't see why people are sitting here scratching their heads saying, well, what's wrong with a PBM? What is a PBM? Like at this point, they're some of the worst, right? And I'm not trying to mince words because I'm saying what I honestly believe. I don't see how it's helpful. I don't see where it's helpful at this point. Now, if it was helpful in the 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe. But at some point, something happened where it got out of hand and not a lot is being done about it. But the people who are often suffering, yourself, myself, and then even some of those smaller local mom and pop pharmacies that are potentially trying to compete with these big chain pharmacies, but they can't because the PBM favors the big chain pharmacies because they can probably do more. So it doesn't make sense, but that's what we're dealing with. So Patient Zero, I'll pause for a second. I want to hear your thoughts before we go into segment 2.
It's similar to most of the episodes where you read off data. I'm a little annoyed, for lack of a better term. It just seems like it's just another, example where the medical care industry is not, its number one priority is not making people better. At
least in this country.
Yeah, in the United States, it's all about profits. When you talking about a violent incident, insulin, goes from $21 to $274 over the course of 20 years, like that. There's no inflation that's doing that.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, if you'd have told me it went from $20 to $40,
right, reasonable.
We could talk about that. And that's another topic for another day. But it's just atrocious that you're taking advantage of people in their time of need, and you're causing sickness, you're prolonging sickness, to make money. And if you are somebody like everybody should be, and you've had a relative with type 1 diabetes, or you've had a relative that's died of cancer, reading these stats should be quite disgusting and nauseating, if just to be frank. So yes, I'm a little perturbed.
Yeah. So I think overall we've unpacked how PBMs have come to power and kind of how they've shifted from being helpful to basically profit-driven gatekeepers, right? We are at a point where if we're seeing those things, it doesn't make sense, but yet it keeps happening and it's running rampant. So, as tools to streamline drug access and lower cost were developed potentially with PBMs or by PBMs, over time they've shifted toward being more opaque in their pricing, manipulating rebates, and steering patients toward affiliated pharmacies rather than patients having the choice of pharmacy they can go to, and it's often at the patient's expense. With 3 PBMs now controlling the vast majority of prescriptions nationwide, concerns around access, fairness, and rising drug prices have led to growing calls for reform. And Patient Zero, any idea where one of those places of reform might be? Any idea?
Places of reform? No clue.
So let's just say that you may live in said place. Okay. Any idea at this point what we're talking about?
The House.
Well, there we go.
The House of Representatives.
There we go. So the state.
I like what you did there.
Yeah. So the state of Louisiana and even our partners across state lines basically are trying to do something about the PBM runaway train, if you will. Right. Yeah. So we'll talk more about what that is right after we come back from this episode. From this break. Hello there, it's Dr. Jasper from the Bija Radio Show. Are you tired of the broken healthcare system, frustrated by long wait times to see your physician, rush visits, and the sky-high healthcare costs that come with those rush visits? Yeah, I hear about it all the time. So if you're tired of dealing with any of those things, then I highly suggest you check out the book Bija Blueprint, an introductory guide to direct primary care for patients, physicians, and businesses. Written by yours truly, it breaks down all you need to know about direct primary care, a model that makes healthcare simple, affordable, and personal again. The book covers topics like how DPC differs from traditional insurance-based healthcare, what's the difference between direct primary care and concierge medicine, how employers can use DPC to cut healthcare costs, how this model reduces burnout for physicians and improves work-life balance, and so much more. Whether you're a patient, a doctor like myself who was fed up and burnt out, or a business owner tired of rising healthcare costs, this book lays it all out in plain English. So if you're ready for something better, check out Bijah Blueprint, available in paperback, audio, and ebook format. Visit bookstoread.com/Bijah Blueprint DPC and get your copy today. All right, coming back in. So for segment 1, we went on ahead and went into the idea of what PBMs are, what they're supposed to do, but more importantly, what they're actually doing. So in segment 2, we're going to talk about how these things being off the proverbial guardrails are going to not necessarily go as far if people start to step in and say, you know what, this doesn't sound right. It's not really helping anything. These people are getting rich off of the unfortunate medical outcomes for patients. Something needs to change, right? So we're going to try to talk about who's doing something about it. So Patient Zero, I kicked it over to you and asked, who do you think is doing something about it? And you said the House. So do you mind sharing with our listeners what the House decided most recently about PBMs and the lovely state of Louisiana?
In Louisiana, we passed legislature on June 12, 2025, the PBM Reform Act. It bans spread pricing. So directs that negotiated rebates and discounts go directly to patients or health plans and prohibits PBM ownership of pharmacy chains.
So I think that's huge, right? So you hit on a few different things that we addressed in segment 1 that are problematic, right?
Yep.
So the first thing you said that it does, and I believe it's probably the biggest focus of the legislation that passed. And to be specific, it's, I believe, HB 358. So for House Bill 358, it was something that said in so many words, we want to try to rein in PBMs within the state of Louisiana. And one of the things that we know could be a problem is spread pricing. So they came out and said, look, we're going to do away with spread pricing. It's flat out banned in Louisiana. So that's one huge victory.
Huge.
The second thing is they want to, in essence, eliminate the rebates and discounts and all the things that could be a product of things like spread pricing and copay clawbacks. They want to basically take that incentive of making it a huge reason to do, because we're going to keep the rebate and pocket it. We're going to keep the dollars and pocket it and make it to where it has to go back to potentially where it rightfully should go, to the patients who overpaid or to the insurance plan that is potentially hiring you to do this job. So now it takes the incentive away from the PBM to potentially do this so it can profit, but makes it to where if they have an incentive to do this, it's going to help the patient, it's going to help potentially the insurance provider or insurance carrier. The last thing that I think is the biggest thing that raised some eyebrows and scared the bejesus, I'm going to go with that word, going my old man bag.
Not the bejesus.
The bejesus out of people was that it came out and said at the potential 11th hour that if you are a pharmacy, you cannot own a PBM within the state of Louisiana. So you have to do one specific thing. You either have to pack up, one of two specific things I should say. You should have to pack up and leave and not operate in Louisiana at all. Or you have to sell potentially your ownership of the PBM, and you can't own the PBM anymore. Now, I'm sure there are workarounds to that, because when you're trying to get over people, you're not going to just say, okay, and then stop.
Right.
But the idea scared so many people within some of these potential pharmacy/PBM co-ownership setups that one particular chain decided to go basically nuclear and start sending out crazy messages to all of their patients, constituents, clients, whatever you want. So much so that I got a phone call from someone that you and I know and care for dearly, my mother. And
what did Ms. Barber say?
Ms. Barber called and said, what is going on at CVS? I'm being told the pharmacy is going to close and all this stuff. And me, I'm working Seeing patients, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Can you let me know? So I look it up, and basically what I find out is CVS is sending messages saying, if you don't do something and your legislators are going to close the pharmacies because we're going to have to fire all our pharmacists and all. And it was just basically a bunch of foolishness. Mm-hmm. And they were saying in so many words, they're going to have to lay all these pharmacists off. They're going to have to close all these pharmacies because they can no longer own a PBM. Had nothing to do with the pharmacy. It had to do with them having ownership of the PBM, because somehow them having their hand not only on the pharmacy side, but also the middleman side, which now mandates you have to go to what pharmacy? CVS. So because you now have to go to CVS, they're now going to somehow lose on that actual angle, if you will. And that's going to make them have to close all the pharmacies in Louisiana. Not most, all of them.
Yeah.
They're going to then have to lay off all the people that were being employed in Louisiana because CVS now cannot operate in Louisiana. Mind you, they didn't say you couldn't operate. That's your choice if you don't want to sell your ownership.
You just can't be a PBM.
You can't be a PBM. So that's why I said it's funny, because we're trying to correct the bad, but you can see when bad actors are involved, they won't just say, sure, I'm a bad person, I've done things badly, let me go ahead and make it right.
Yeah.
They're going to double and triple down.
But
so much so that, and I'm going to give you the last little tidbit, I have it on good authority that this wasn't just we're going to send out text messages and emails and Facebook posts. Or they actually got all of their head honchos, for lack of a better term, on a plane, and they were in Louisiana at the Capitol lobbying with the legislators so this did not go through. Mm-hmm. Literally within a blink of an eye, this law or proposed law with the bill came out at the end of the day or in the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. And when it came out on, I think, the second to last day of the actual session, when that happened, within 24 hours, they were on a plane in Louisiana. It's amazing how fast things get done when you basically start cutting off money from people, right? When rich people, you mess with their money, all of a sudden, things change. So that's why I thought that was really interesting. And all of that being said, this is not 100% done, but it's pretty much moving in that direction. So that's huge for some places, not all, right? Because everybody doesn't do that. But for Louisiana to be one of the first to do it, that's pretty impressive in my book. I don't know if you know a lot about, how great Louisiana is, but, as I always joke, we strong in this 48th spot, maybe a strong 49.
Yeah, we're amazing when it comes to culture, food, things of that nature. But being progressive, that's not our forte.
Well, keeping folks alive and also obviously educating folks, that can kind of be a little bit of a Achilles heel.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So getting this right, of course, I'm happy.
And I love to hear it. Dude, yeah. And look, I'll be honest with you, man. My parents got the same text message, and I was concerned because, Donaldsonville, you got, there's a pharmacy in Walmart. And there's like a little mom and pop pharmacy, but for the most part, CVS dominates and serves the people of Donaldsonville, right? Yeah. So that would be a major blow. And obviously you're kind of using scare tactics because they're worried because that's their main pharmacy. Mm-hmm. That's where they get all their prescriptions, because you take that out, it's going to be hard for them to access medicine, right? But I'll be honest with you, bro. I know we're not supposed to be opinionated. We're supposed to talk about the facts.
I'm not going to say you're not supposed to be. You want to try to remain as impartial as possible to be an amazing journalist. I know this because I saw it in a journalism documentary.
Yep.
Not that I went to journalism school or anything.
I hate CVS. I hate CVS with a fiery passion. I'm still mad that they bought Eckert's. I loved Eckert's back in the day. And dude, everything CVS does is it's a thorn in my side. So not only am I appreciative that Louisiana got this right, the fact that it was CVS is just like an extra little sprinkle of joy for me.
There you go.
Because I hate going in there.
Well, I like the idea that they are almost there. Now, I'm not going to give them their full flowers until it's completely done, right? Because they're close, right? They went on ahead and put a lot of stuff in place, but not all. They didn't fully pass the idea that the pharmacy can't also own the PBM. I think they started with that. They proposed it, but that got removed from the final bill, if I'm not mistaken. But I think they're still debating on what's going to be the final legislation, but they are obviously really close. Mm-hmm. Now, as I mentioned, the thing that was helpful to me was not only that they potentially got this right, but as I read more on the actual subject matter, it literally crossed my mind that, well, I'm wondering if we're the first. Well, lo and behold, we were not, my friend. And I know that that probably might be not surprising that we were not the first, but I think you would be surprised on who actually was the first to put forth legislation that does, if not the exact same thing Louisiana's trying to do, something very close. Any idea what potential state was the first? Now, I'm going to give you a lot of guesses. You only got 49 options.
I only need one.
What you got?
I got our neighbors to the north, the Razorback, Arkansas.
All right. Now, is there a reason why you went Arkansas? Is there any particular reason why?
Yes.
Why is it?
Because I have notes in front of me.
I'm only laughing because I did send this to you in a text message when I said, oh, we're going to do an episode on this because this is gold. I actually sent it in a text message, said that Arkansas actually was the first state to do it and Louisiana's number 2.
Yep.
Now, again, some people might feel upset about being number 2, but after being 48 and 49 for a while, that number 2 looks pretty good to me.
There's a whole bunch of, I guess, Generation Z people that don't like to be number 2.
Gotcha.
You know, I call them LeBron fans. They get real upset when you call them number 2. In 80 plus years of basketball, being that he's the second best player to ever play, somehow they're upset about that. But you know, so to your point, some people don't like being number 2.
Yeah, so different strokes for different folks, but I will kind of give some context. So we are in what month, George, as we record this episode?
We're in June.
Okay.
The hottest month.
Well, in Louisiana for sure, right?
Right.
So June of 2025, Louisiana put forth legislation. Well, in April of 2025, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed into legislation HB 1150 or Act 624 prohibiting PBMs from owning or operating pharmacies, making Arkansas the first state in the nation to pass such a ban. So again, we're proposing legislation in June. They've already passed it and it's signed into law. Now, that's not saying that it's going to stay that way because, of course, when you take away people's money, they don't just say, okay, and go home. So, of course, the owners of said PBMs are now suing the state of Arkansas, trying to get this reversed. Good luck with that. But it gives you a sense on how quickly that this potentially took place, where Louisiana saw maybe some people in Arkansas doing this and said, hey, it's not a bad idea that we may, I don't know, save a couple $2 billion and it's not going to PBMs and give it back to our residents and our constituents and things of that nature to, I don't know, improve education, improve roads, you know, things like that nature. But what do we know? Maybe they just decided that somebody got on somebody's nerves and did something different. But Arkansas got it right first, okay? So in January of 2026, January 1st to be exact, the law mandates the revocation or non-renewal of pharmacy permits held by PBMs, right? So basically, they can have a limited use permit and that'll be available, but it will be really, really, really narrow, okay? So the PBMs are slowly but surely getting removed from the state of Arkansas in one way or another. And if they are there, they're going to be very limited in scope. And that's huge because it gets rid of the idea of an old saying that I'm going to hit you with. Tell me if you heard this one before. The fox guarding the hen house. Have you ever heard that before?
I have.
So that's kind of what we're dealing with. The PBM is supposed to somehow be the keeper of the hen house, but they're the one that's going to benefit from the hen house being raided. So why would they do that? So what Arkansas is trying to do and the state of Louisiana is trying to do is right the potential wrong, and not saying that they can't operate, but how about we put the incentive where it should be? How about we put the money back where it came from rather than you taking it and running off with it? And now CVS, aka CVS Caremark, and potentially this company who also owns Express Scripts, but is also an actual insurance company. Like, how about we give you one or the other?
Right.
If you want to be a PBM, be that, but you can't be CVS anymore. If you want to be CVS, you can't be CVS Caremark anymore. Like, you have to pick one or the other. And if we do that, maybe this will get better. Now, I'm going to be more skeptical to think that they're just going to try to find another way to manipulate the system.
They probably rename it.
They're going to do something different.
They probably bring back like Eckerd's or something.
Their cousin going to own it or something like that. They don't technically own it, but the family member own it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
but kudos to Louisiana and Arkansas for making it harder to get that done, right?
Absolutely. I agree. So the idea of us talking about this is to try to hopefully, of course, educate you as a listener. Not only are you potentially in this ecosystem of healthcare within the United States, but you're in the ecosystem of cost and also outcomes. So if you just kind of sit and think that all these people have your best interest at hand, you might want to think again. Finding physicians and pharmacists that really care about you and helping you get the best care, best outcomes, best price is rare in a lot of industries, not because those people are rare, but their hands are tied, right? Like at a certain point, if you're trying to run a business and CVS and all these big companies are saying, we're going to cut them off at the knees, they got to make a choice on keeping their lights on and feeding their family or doing things to help patients. They're going to try to keep the lights on to help more people, but some people are going to get left out. So you have to do your part as well. And knowing what a PBM is the first thing. Knowing how they operate is the second thing, but then knowing where the rails are potentially no longer in place and how is this coming up. It's not just saying, well, CVS sent me a message. Let me go argue with my representative because CVS said so, because I trust CVS. Well, how about you do some education on your part to know what is and what isn't logical, what is or what isn't happening. And you can ask the pharmacist at the independent pharmacies. You can ask your doctors, especially those that are on the outpatient side, how this works. And I guarantee most of those primary care doctors, especially ones like myself in the DPC space, we will tell you PBMs are the worst. And they are the worst because I hate having to call them. I hate having to try to get them on the phone to explain to me why something is or isn't covered. And the worst part is, even if it's not covered in a PA and we do an appeal, it's just more paperwork to waste time. Because by the time we get to that place, you're 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road sicker. The medicine we want is no longer available, where we're just wasting time, and all they do is basically bury you in paperwork. And if you're a physician and you're seeing 50 people a day, how can you have time to do a PA and be on the phone?
Well, you can't.
You can't, right? So at that point, you're going to make a decision to do what? Change the medicine to something that's covered, or find a workaround, even though the best medicine is this. Mm-hmm. So at that point, we talked about it on previous episodes, it turns into something called moral injury. So now I have to make a hard decision on, do I give you something that's subpar that I don't like, and now I'm worried about you still not getting better, or do I keep fighting for something that I know is not going to happen? And at that point, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out, and I'm like, well, why do I want to keep doing this? This is too stressful. Let me just go do something else. So that's why I think this topic, it literally runs into the other topics we've done. The burnout, the moral injury, the cost topics, the health disparities, right. All of those things are tied together, and it's just another layer.
And from a patient perspective, how many times do we have to tell you the system is broken? You know, you literally just articulated an example where doctors are put in a position where you can fight and do what's best for the patient at the detriment of your own time and energy. Mm-hmm. Because if you've seen 50 patients, you don't have time to go up to bat and fight for each one of them with PBMs. It's just not possible. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, don't talk about it. If you have your own family, your own health issues, you got to be present. So it literally makes you choose either the patient or yourself. Yeah, which is not why you became a doctor.
Correct.
But also, you know, back to the patients, it's like, all right, how many times do we have to tell you your health is your responsibility? You just can't blindly take the word of everybody involved in the health industry, because how many times do we have to tell you this health industry is a business? It is for profit. Everything that's made for profit is not going to give you the best results. I'm sorry. You know, I hate to be like that, but at the same time, if the goal is to make the profit, your well-being is not priority number one. Now, they can make a profit and take care of you. Cool. But if there's a choice between the two, guess what? Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Easily.
So you have to take your own health as your own responsibility and do your own research, make your decisions, Even in the DPC space, even at Baja Clinic, Dr. Jasper is not in charge of my health. He's a resource, a great one, but a resource nonetheless. At the end of the day, I got to take care of myself, and I got to make sure I'm here, and I have to make the decisions that's best for me.
100%. And I think the other idea to kind of bring it full circle is, if you're listening and you've listened and you've listened and you checked out different episodes, it almost will sound like we're saying the same thing over and over again. And it's not because we literally wake up, decide to record and say, we're going to say the same thing over and over again. It's more so, this is the point where we come to. Now, if something comes out and it's better, we'll tell you. If something comes out that has changed for the better, we'll tell you. And we're trying to do that today by saying, hey, this potential legislation in these two states are trying to affect change for the better. Now, will they get it right out the gate? No. Will they probably make mistakes and there's going to be holes and loopholes and things of that? I'm sure, because that's just the way in the world we live in. But if it is something that you're hearing over and over again, my hope is that it will sink in that we're not saying this because we're bored and have nothing to do. We're saying this because this is the way it is, and we're trying to affect change just like some of these other people that you may come across in the healthcare space. And we hope you will help us do that, not only by spreading the messages that we're putting out, spreading the information we're actually reviewing, going into the statistics and taking that and bringing it to other people, but also saying, you know what? We're not just going to talk about it. We're going to do something about it. And I think that's what we're hearing when it comes to PBMs. It's not about, well, it's just the way it is. We can't do anything about it. It's, well, something's not right. Let's see if we can affect change, and how can we affect change that's going to be long lasting, because it will help all people potentially within the healthcare space. People like Patient Zero on the patient side, people like Dr. Jasper on the physician side, the smaller independent pharmacies that are having a tough time competing in these spaces and getting closed down because they can't go into a rural setting like a Donaldsonville and open up shop and compete with a CVS, because CVS is just crushing them by saying 90 to 95% of people have to come to CVS. So you, small mom and pop pharmacy, you don't have that many people coming in to fill medicines. Why? Because your insurance, quote unquote, won't cover it. When it's not the insurance, it's the PBM that is actually making it to where it's not covered. And insurance can also do what? Skirt off responsibility. So it's another good curveball from an insurance standpoint, which we already know how I feel about some insurance stuff. They literally find a way to basically say, well, it's not me that's not doing it. It is clearly Express Scripts. You need to call Express Scripts. You call Express Scripts and they say, well, you need to call Blue Cross, or you need to call Cigna, or you need to call United. So it's literally just a way to get you off the phone and have you call 4 or 5 different people. And I'm no different in this space, because I've been in this situation where I will start with one insurance. They'll tell me to call the pharmacy side. I call the pharmacy. They say call the insurance. The insurance calls the pharmacy. After you done call 4 or 5 times, you're like, look, man, we just going to have to do something else, because it's not worth the time. And it's because they're setting up smoke and mirrors on purpose. Their goal is to wear you down so you get whatever you get, and either you basically have a bad outcome or you just quit. And that's why people just are disenfranchised with the system as a whole. But we're changing that, my friend, and we're changing that for the better. So for the people who are listening not only to the Bijah Radio Show, but the melodious voice of Dr. Jasper and Patient Zero, first thing you've learned potentially today is it's not a podcast.
It's a radio show.
It's a radio show. So that's the first and most important thing. Outside of that, the second thing you hopefully have learned is that PBMs are present. They're probably not going anywhere unless things like this happen. But you now are more educated to know what they are and know what is on your card and what those things mean if you have insurance. You also heard Patient Zero articulate that sometimes it may be actually more beneficial to not use your insurance when it comes to certain things. So see what that looks like, if at all possible. Try to have patience when you're doing that, because it could be hard for people to wrap their head around paying for something out of pocket and not using insurance for everything. Go figure. We do it all the time over here. But if you do that and it works, then so be it.
I was about to say, I know this episode is about drugs, but man, talk about labs, bro. I feel like my labs are always cheaper when I don't use insurance. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, happened again today on the pharmacy side, happened today on the insurance side where we didn't use insurance and people save money. So happens a lot. It's just getting people to unplug from the proverbial matrix, my friend. So with that, I will bring it to a close. So Patient Zero, any closing thoughts for our bonus episode on transition from season 3 to season 4 to give people a taste of where we've been and where we're headed to, which in my book is a lot of great things. Anything that you want to leave the people with so they are potentially excited to come back for season 4 and actually saying, you know what, I can't wait to hear what these genius men have cooked up.
So, I would say...
I'm sorry, let me interrupt real quickly. It can be about jelly. We kind of know how you feel about it. But at the same time, I'm just saying, is there any other things besides that?
I mean, I'm just saying, like, when it comes to jelly, first of all, it's not tasty. And it has like a ton of sugar in it. So, I mean, if you feel like spending $240-something for this vial of insulin, have all the jelly you want. But, as for me and mine, I'm a pass. But, just kind of back on what we keep talking about, just everything in the health industry is not doom and gloom. It's a lot of for-profit things, however, and it's not set up for your benefit. So do your own research. Ask questions before you blindly accept answers from your physician or from your PBM or your insurance. Ask for alternatives. If you're not sure about something doesn't feel right, find out, and take responsibility for your own health care, not put it in the hands of people that want to make a profit. That doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
Right. And also, when season 4, man, we got a lot of stuff coming up for season 4. We'll have some more partners that'll be advertising with us on season 4. So those are some things that you can look forward to. You can also look forward to some new shows potentially.
It's no potential. It's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. It's whether they want it or not.
So new shows.
You're gonna get this work.
Right. So you'll probably you'll see a syndication from us. So there's a lot of things that you'll see in season 4 and beyond. So we're just getting started here at Advisor Radio. So stay tuned and continue to rock with us. We appreciate your support. But continue to share, like, and subscribe, and get the word out.
And I think I'm going to kick it back to Patient Zero. I'm going to do a couple things, and then I'm going to kick it back to Patient Zero so we can close out, rightfully so, this potential transition show from season 3 to season 4. So things that I want you to take home after today's episode. In certain artistic fields and industries, it's okay to root for the villain. Clearly, Patient Zero highlights the Joker in Dark Knight. Also the Joker in Joker. Right, Joaquin Phoenix. We had that we talked about that as well.
We did.
I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Set It Off. Do you remember Set It Off?
Yeah.
Queen Latifah.
Yeah.
Jada Pinkett. They were technically the bad guys. Technically.
Wait, what was my boy from Night Court? What was his character? The black dude, man. What was his character?
I do not recall. I did not watch Night Court like that.
But I'm talking, man, he was something else too. He was one.
It wasn't Blair Underwood in Set It Off. That's what I wanted to make sure.
It was the older dude, man. That was giving the girl the money. He's like, oh, you need your bills paid. I'd call him a villain too.
I could see that too. But my point is,
I wasn't rooting for him.
Well, I was about to say, I hope you weren't rooting.
I wasn't rooting for him.
But
he's a villain too.
So also, in that same vein, if not necessarily rooting for the villain, I will say that depending upon what we're talking about, some of these villain type movies where you're rooting technically for the villain have amazing soundtracks. Set It Off had an amazing soundtrack.
But what happened to movie soundtracks?
Okay. Dead Presidents had an amazing soundtrack. I'm just putting those two out there because those two come to mind. But yes.
But think about it. In the 90s, when we were like teenagers, 90s, early 2000s, you'd go to the CD store. Like for us, it was Music City in Donaldsonville. You go to the CD store, you get the album before the movie came out in theaters.
Yeah.
There was a soundtrack to every good. Think about it. Think about the Jason's Lyric soundtrack, or think about the Set It Off soundtrack. Think about Waiting to Exhale.
100%.
The soundtrack better than the movie. Think about that.
I don't think you're authority on that, but I understand.
No, that soundtrack was better than the movie.
There's some hilarious parts in that movie. Wendell Pierce, when he was dancing.
Shout out to New Orleans.
Right. When he was dancing. I was laughing about that in my head literally the other day. I was like, he knew he was getting it. So for real.
So I just always, how many times did they take to get that shot where Angela Bassett is walking off and she throws a cigarette behind her back to light the car on fire. Like how many takes you think they took to do
I don't know, but she killed it. I will say that. Literally and figuratively, I'm sure now.
She's the swollest actress I've ever seen. Like, you ever see her arms?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
she in the gym. She in the gym.
Twice a day. 2 days.
Easily. And I'm not mad at it.
Not me either.
But that's why I said, so the beginning of my things to take home, clearly you see the artistic nature we have here at Baja Radio. Yeah. We're not just talking about health. We're talking about things that literally are culturally relevant. So if you're a new listener, we're helping you understand that soundtracks are a thing and you should figure that out. Now, if movies don't have them today, that's not our fault, but you should go and discover these old soundtracks because they're amazing. Then on top of that,
Space Jam being another one.
Well, I'm going to say Space Jam is a solid movie. I remember a couple of
soundtrack.
I remember a couple. I don't remember as many, but not like Waiting to Exhale, not like Jason's Lyric, not like Life. All of these things.
Life soundtrack was good.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't remember Space Jam like that, but you might be right. I'm willing to go back and listen.
So, you know what? I'm glad you said that. Because some of the soundtracks, like the main song had like nothing to do about the movie. You remember like Life, the main song was, what would you do if your kids were at home? Yeah. You know, like, and they were hungry.
City Hall.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, City Hall. Uh-huh. That was on Life soundtrack.
It was.
They was in prison. They didn't have kids in Life. like what was the point?
That is a very morbid song, but also made to seem very happy.
Like it was a good song. It was a brilliant song.
Extremely morbid.
I just don't understand what did that have to do with the movie Life. Like when Ray and Claude, they showed them at the end. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert. And first of all, if you hadn't seen Life yet, after all this time, shame on you. But at the end of the movie, they showed Ray and Claude in Yankee Stadium, and like they enjoying the ball game because they got away, they faked their debts, and then they play that song.
See what I'm saying?
Like, what did it have to do with anything?
See what I'm saying?
Good song.
Well, I think the idea for them was they had the lyric. For me, this is what I call life. That's the reason why I think they did it. Now, it had nothing to do with the movie.
Nothing to do
and
with
extremely
the movie.
Morbid if you actually know the words. Highly doubt that they were thinking about it contextually, but they heard the word life. Bro, they thought it was a good fit. That's all I'm saying.
I'm just saying, bro. You know how many movies, how many songs got the word life in it?
Yes, true.
They could have played Hard Knock Life.
Yeah, they could have played, what is Casey and JoJo, Life's Life?
Yeah. They could have played Maxwell. They could have played Lifetime.
They could have done a lot of things, and obviously they dropped the ball. But great movie, by the way.
It's a great movie.
Other things that I would take home from today's episode, besides obviously, clearly this amazing information we're bringing you right now on movies, soundtrack, and culture, is that, again, if you know there's a problem with something, don't just sit back and think you don't have any business or authority getting something done about it. In healthcare specifically, healthcare is probably one of the worst in terms of things that are not really proven to be effective, yet we just do them, yet no one seems to rock the boat. So obviously we're in the direct primary care seat here. We're going to tell you that there's a better method to getting healthcare than always thinking insurance is the proverbial best thing ever. People tend to say, I want to go within my network and then have no idea what the network is. They say, I want to use my insurance and doesn't know what it covers. So what I'm going to tell you is try to look into what you're getting. Is it worth it? Is it helpful? Is it beneficial? If it is, feel free to keep it. If it's not, try something else. And that something else may be trying to change the rules and not just saying, well, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to take the lesser than the things that I'm owed or I'm due, and I'm going to just do what I want to do. And if you do that, maybe you'll get a better outcome, maybe like the state of Louisiana and Arkansas when it comes to this, because doing what's already being done doesn't seem to be helping much, especially in the numbers, being in the 47, 48, 49th, maybe 50th seat. It ain't working. So how about we try something different? And hopefully you'll do the same. You're trying that already potentially by listening to Baja Radio and obviously becoming a subscriber, a follower, and possibly sharing, liking, and commenting. We love the comments. I think I shared with you, Patient Zero, we give a few shout outs, and that's the last part I think we're going to do before we tell people where they can find us.
Yep.
Shout outs to the people who are helping us power through. Okay. So, George, I'll kick it to you. Any shout outs you want to give before we close out?
I mean, I think you've been posting to the frat group, the chapter group. Mm-hmm. We had Todd Sterling shout us out. Art Dubrell, the Silver Fox, shout us out. Mm-hmm. So I've enjoyed those brothers' feedback. and brother Robert Johnson as well, man. He actually told me he enjoyed the podcast, and he also hit me up on some on the personal side, and we were able to get a friend of his taken care of with some health stuff. So even more important than the entertainment side, we were able to help somebody, which is good stuff too. So shout out to brother Robert Johnson, brother Ty Sterling, brother Art Dubrell.
Yeah, so going down the brotherly train, I'm also say shout out to brother Matt Valaire. He definitely hit us up and said he enjoyed it. It was doing some good work. Brother Dave D'Artes, of course.
Go for it.
Brother President, always keeping us in line, but definitely appreciate the love there. Go outside the frat for a second. So I'm going to say shout out to my brother from my mother.
Your actual mother.
Jarrell. Hilarious all the time.
You know how we say brother from another mother?
Yeah.
No, like brother from my real mom.
Right, from my mother. Yeah. So shout out to Jarrell. Shout out to some people from the BNI chapter that we're part of. So Steve is probably one of the most diehard. His comment is hilarious, by the way. So Steve, we saw it. We appreciate you for actually writing the comment, but more importantly, we can tell you a listener, because he didn't just write, great show, love the content. He literally takes stuff from the episodes and use it in the comments. So that tells us we're doing something right.
Steve is a guy I want to have a drink with. I just want to sit down and just drink with Steve. He's just that guy.
I think that could be very entertaining, but it also could give us more comedic gold. So I encourage it. I would say definitely. Yeah. So Steve, if you're listening, which I'm sure you are, go ahead and put us on your schedule. I'm just there to witness, right? Because somebody got to get you home. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, man. There's Uber. I got an app on my phone.
There you go. We are in the 2020s.
It's not like I got to go to the CD store about soundtrack.
You got a Model T outside. That's what you got. So
I got a 96 Impala.
Got a payphone with a bunch of quarters.
That Caprice Classic, man, and the beeper.
There you go. Shout out to beepers. Oh, man. Took me back. I'm going to say shout out to beepers for the ingenuity. No shout out to beepers for being on call. My goodness, that is some of the most traumatizing thing ever. If you don't know what I mean, unless you just love being on call and working in the hospital, a pager going off when you asleep, and it could be an emergency, some of the worst things ever. So needless to say, I don't have a pager anymore.
I'm about to go play Snake.
All that being said, more quick shout outs. So shout out to the original GP. I know he's a listener, and he definitely kind of checks in with us. And I'm sure we're missing some people, but we're naming the people who I would say definitely kind of have either come to us recently or at least engage with us regularly. Now, not saying that many of you don't do that, but I'm just saying that if you obviously want a shout out, we need a little more from you. That's all I'm saying, right? Yeah. I mean, not hard.
We always need shout outs, and also, if your business needs a shout out, we can help you with that too.
Absolutely. And we are not above gifts. I think that's another thing.
I like stuff.
As long as you don't bring George jelly.
Yeah, don't bring me no jelly at all. Like, I'm going to be offended. I might throw it at you.
Just flip the table over, that kind of thing.
Right.
Oh, man. With that, George, we're going to close out officially. So where can the people find you, my friend?
Yeah, man, they still can find me at George_Becknell on Twitter. Becknell Media on Instagram, and George Becknell II on LinkedIn.
And you can find us at Bija Clinic, where we are on the website at www.byja.org, at our charitable alliance for our nonprofit division of the clinic. That is www.byjaca.org for Bija Charitable Alliance. On social media, you can find us at Instagram and Facebook at Bija Clinic, all one word. And we are also on LinkedIn, of course, under Bija Clinic. With that, we appreciate you for, again, rolling with us to this point. It doesn't sound like it's an amazing journey until you realize where we started and where we're going. And the fact that when I have people say, oh, you have a radio show, and I say yes, because it's not a podcast, and they start laughing. That's the first thing. But the second thing is when we tell them we have this show and they say, you've been on for 3 seasons, that's actually pretty amazing. Tells us we're doing something right. So with that, again, we appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you in season 4. And Patient Zero and I are looking forward to doing more to educate and bring people to a better state of health. Peace, y'all.